And of course, it picks that time for somebody to call about my car warranty. I'm going to mute everybody here. And appreciate folks joining. We're going to look more at some home movies as soon as the phone stops here. I've been scanning away. I've got some that I finished and others that you'll see sort of a work in progress. But it's been fun. A lot of these little reels of film, sometimes you pick it up and it's 4 minutes of footage, of which 3 minutes and 30 seconds is just stuff you've seen before, or it's not real good. And all of a sudden something will pop up that you go, oh, wow, it's the first time I've seen that on video. So for example, we'll see a picture, we've seen stills before when I talked about the Carousel of Progress at the World's Fair, where you came up a ramp and you went up to the GE exhibits upstairs. Well, somebody luckily had their movie camera and they filmed going up the ramp. So you see all the kaleidoscopic lights and everything going on. It's kind of neat. The rest of that reel is not so exciting, but you know, I don't know how exciting it is to the rest of you, but to me it was like, wow, that's neat. I can watch that. So I'm going to get started with the 1962 Seattle World's Fair. How many people, by just waving hands, went to that? No, not too many. Okay. Well, in this particular case, we're going to take a look at the crowds waiting to go up the Space Needle. And then we're going to see the Space Needle, the elevator ride and that sort of thing. And then you get some views up top. If you've been to Seattle in the years since, Carol and I have gone a couple times, and going up the Space Needle is sort of obligatory. The city has changed quite a bit, as you might imagine, in 60 years. So let me share screen and optimize for video. And let's see, we'll get this going on. Okay. New York State World's Fair logo in the background there. They had a display at the fair. This has all changed immensely up top now, a much higher barrier to keep people from jumping over. The line for the United States exhibit. The cruise ship used as a floating hotel. This is the line for the Ford exhibit. This is not lost on the Ford executives. Challenged Disney with coming up with a better queuing system for the 64 World's Fair. That's the entrance area, one of the entrance areas with those totem pole designs. Seattle streets have ever been. The Gateway amusement area down below. Monorail curving around. Still in service today. Okay, so that takes us through Seattle, and let me just do something real quick. I want to just drop the volume down here on these things. So let's see what others we have lined up here for you today. So we did Seattle, and I have a lot more Seattle films I've got to dig out of a box and get going on them. But it's kind of interesting to see how the things have changed over the years. So I'm going to jump up here to the 64 World's Fair. I don't think I showed this one last week. If I did, I will try to recognize it and stop it. But we'll take a look here at 1964. One of the escorters going by. One of the good ways you can date it to 64. The Ford Magic Skyway right now. We're going through the big long glass tunnel outside the Ford Pavilion. We've seen shots of all the cars going, convertibles going through it to the right. United States Pavilion in the background. Stadium, brand new back then. The General, famous train we've talked about a couple times before. That's the boy with the hat we saw last week. Blow your top with soda pop, that we've yet to figure out what on earth it means. Uncle Dad was really moving the camera around there a lot. Tower of Light. You can tell it must be probably 65 because all of these brass rail balloons still are nice and white and clean. So early 64, they were white. By the end of the season, they were quite gray and dingy looking. The air in New York being just terrible back then. Let's jump up a year and see if the brass rails look any better or worse. Will another look worse? We're going to start here. This is Wayne, New Jersey. The Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts of Wayne, New Jersey, going for a parade. They're not actually at the fair right now. They're in Wayne. But having participated in many a parade in my Boy Scout days, I left this at the beginning of the reel. I think anybody that was ever in a Boy Scout or Girl Scout event would probably relate to this. So they're all, I get a kick, the Girl Scouts hold with their white gloves, how times have changed. But they're all marching in time, or not all of them. Some of them are marching and getting ready for the big event. And the Boy Scouts are all out there. Like I said, this woke up many, many memories for me of marching down Grand Avenue in Baldwin, New York. And we're going to pop from here in just a moment over to the fair. Been trying to see if I can find a museum in Wayne, New Jersey that might like to have a copy of this. If anybody back there in New Jersey knows of any organizations or anything I can get a copy to, please let me know. And we're off at the fair, obviously. Remember the balloons? They had some sand inside, so when you shook them, they made a really neat rattling noise. I'm sure by the end of the day, parents just love to hear those in the car on the way home. Nice night view, Equitable over on the left, Festival of Gas over to the right, and the fireworks show at the Pool of Industry, Fountain of the Planets. Again, this is, I wish these were sound movies because the sound of these fountains and fireworks going off was really spectacular. Yeah, the music, of course, going along with it, but just the noise that these fountains put out with all that water jetting so high into the sky and then the fireworks going overhead. Night was probably my favorite time at the fair because the crowds were down, the heat was down, but trying to stay late and watch this show. And then I had to promise my parents I'd catch the very, very first train home after the fireworks because they didn't want me getting home any later than that. It was a spectacular way to end a great day. These films were incredibly dark, but luckily the computer came to the rescue. The next one I have not yet put music or titles or anything on, so it's a work in progress. But we start with more World's Fair fireworks. This is at the entrance to Travelers Insurance. Beautiful stained glass window. Didn't really show up much during the day, but at night it really shone. I've not been able to find out what became of that after the fair. If anybody has any clues, I'd love to know and pray that it still exists. We're inside, obviously, the GE Carousel of Progress. Very hard to get pictures back then because the light levels needed. I haven't yet adjusted these for the full color correction because they were using outdoor film filmed under indoor lighting, and I've got to adjust that. Haven't had the time yet. And again, going up the ramp upstairs, and just kind of a neat pattern that they did with the colored lights. We're inside the Tower of Light now, ready kilowatt. And then we hop back outside. This film was incredibly dark. Whoever shot it did whatever he did to his camera. It was almost opaque, and I was about ready to give up on it when I first saw it. And it's a little rough in a few spots where, like right here, you get a lot of grain and stuff like that. Again, I haven't edited out all the little bits and bobs that might want to come out at the end. Souvenir stand, we'd all love to go and spend 1 hour and have a credit card to go back then. But of course, you couldn't use your Visa card back then, right? We didn't have Visa cards or MasterCards back then. We had Bank of America card, and I forget what they called the Master Charge. I guess that was Master Charge, not MasterCard back then. You think about it, if you did get a time machine trip back to the '64 World's Fair and you wanted to go to the souvenir stand, none of your money in your pocket today would be any good, right? Because it's all changed since then. So you'd have to, before you go back, you could get some 1964 earlier currency. Somebody mentioned me once that would be very expensive. And I said, well, if I had the money to afford a time machine, I'd be going back and buying some stock back then, and getting the money today would be no problem. Indonesia Pavilion, Spain. The theme of the World's Fair, peace through understanding. Berlin was landlocked by the Soviet Union at that point, and had this pavilion trying to ask everybody, please don't forget us. We're, we're still here. We need your help. And that's the end of her. So we're going to leave the World's Fair for a moment, and we're going to go and hop over to Disneyland and take a look here. Trying to remember what I last left off here with Disneyland. Let's take a look here. This is Super 8 movie shot in 1972. Super 8 gave a much larger screen image than it did on the standard 8. It really it gave you a true letterbox type format. And it shows up with a much better picture quality and resolution. I don't know how many Disney folks had ever done these dwarfs back when you were doing Disney Way or working the Christmas party, but that was a lot of weight sitting up on your shoulders. Interesting when people see these pictures, some of them start commenting how much they liked the dwarfs back then compared to the dwarfs today. People that only knew the dwarfs today look at these and think they're horrific. So it's all a matter of what you grew up with, isn't it? For a ride in the Matterhorn. Oh, we're not going for a ride? Instead, let's go get one of those wonderful tuna fish sandwiches over at the Captain Hook's pirate ship. It was always a great spot to stop. It was, from my point of view, one of the less crowded eateries at the park. So if I was just going out on my lunch hour and getting something, it was always a lot easier to get something there than any of the other stands. Even Dad can't resist to see if the wheel actually is bolted down or not. And the Swiss Family Robinson treehouse before the Tarzan modifications. How many people have the song going through your head right now? Again, I've not done all the full color correction of some of these. Mom's feeling frisky. The rarely seen murder at Disneyland. Late in the day and the light's not real good, but we get one last view of Mickey Mouse. How's that for a quick parade? One float and Mickey. Take a later look. I think I may have done this one last week. Or Disney Legal made them put that up. Submarines were gray like they were meant to be. And we're going to jump to a couple other Southern California locations. People that are back east may have heard of some of these or not, but we'll take a look at some of them. Calico Ghost Town is a great spot if you ever get a chance to go out and visit it. It's a former mining town out sort of out in the middle of nowhere, but it's city or a county park right now. And Walter Knott, who is famous for Knott's Berry Farm, was the guy that was responsible for preserving a lot of these buildings as well. Oh, too crowded out there that day. Well, it's pretty dry looking out there. So let's go to some place with a lot of water, and that's going to be Marineland. Marineland of the Pacific's sadly gone now, but 1970, this was the view. This was a great spot to go with the family whenever we had visitors in from out of town and everything went. Then the owners one night took all the animals out in the middle of the night, tore the place apart, and now it's a fancy development out on the coast. But give a trivia prize and see if anybody remembers the names of the two killer whales.
Bill, are you there?
Sorry, I had muted myself. Sorry. When the mail lady came by. So we're at Universal now in 1968. That's what I get for not wanting everybody to hear all the dogs. This is real short. People might recognize some of the houses on the back lot. As I said, that was a short one. We'll take a look at a longer one 2 years later in 1970. Again, this is a work in progress. I haven't added the music or anything. You can see the format's different. This was also shot on Super 8. Warner Brothers off in the distance. This was shot in an area called Prop Plaza, where they had a number of different exhibits and things, and we'll be seeing a number of those coming up. But it was midway through the tour. They would take you out. You'd walk around Prop Plaza again, get back on the tram, and take the rest of the tour. It was later discontinued that they wouldn't take you off. But this is from the War Wagon, John Wayne movie made in 1968. So this film, it's not necessarily 1970. It's in the 70s. I'm not sure the exact year. You can see this big signs, please keep off. And of course, the kids are climbing all over it. But back when I worked at Universal, Prop Plaza was just sitting there empty. It was used for catering private parties and stuff. Well, this is a Air Force T-33 jet trainer. It's the wrong serial number, but I tracked down the real plane. It stayed with the Air Force for about 5-6 years. It was the first model of the T-33, had been found to have a lot of shortcomings that they got rid of the first model real fast, and they made improvements to the others. So Universal still owns that in storage. That's what happens when you bang your elbow on a cannon. And Prop Plaza, you could go and you could use these giant foam rubber boulders and make yourself look real big. The little girl's obviously enjoying herself. They also would, they had a lot of the props up there when I first came out here in '76 from the old TV show Land of the Giants. So giant telephones and staplers and desks and things like that. Then you could get in the stagecoach and that would bounce up and down, and the backdrop would move behind you just like the car. The famous flooding river in the Mexican village. And just riding around the back lot with the various old props and things that are scattered around. That was the Riverboat Enterprise from Darren McGavin and Burt Reynolds TV series. The submarine's really neat. This lagoon, we would go out at lunch and feed the fish in it French fries. And I tell you, they had nothing on, piranhas had nothing on these guys. They were the hungriest fish you could ever imagine. As soon as you came walking out to the dock, they would realize you were coming to feed them and they'd come swarming. So we'd always go to the snack bar, buy a couple extra tubs of French fries. And the gal was like, "You must really like French fries," to order 3-4 orders at a time. And I said, "Nah, we're going out to feed the fish." And it was a relaxing way to spend time during your day. Off to the left was the part of the lake they used for the creature from the Black Lagoon to do some of the pickup shots. Most of it was shot down in Florida, but they did some shots out here. And we're seeing the creation of the famous crossing of the Red Sea as the waters recede and the tram is going to get ready to go through it. So we have one last film, again from the Southern California area, Santa's Village. This is up near Lake Arrowhead. We're starting first with the Lake Arrowhead Village, the old village that they decided was needed to be remodernized. So they had a giant exercise where the local volunteer fire departments came up and they burned the village to the ground, and they practiced putting things out. And then they built a new village, which doesn't have anywhere near as much of the alpine charm of the old one. But it's, if you ever in our area and you want something to do other than the city, Lake Arrowhead is a very nice place to go up to. The traffic can be a little daunting to get up there on a Friday and come back on a Sunday. Carol's parents used to have a place up there, and that was the trouble is everybody wanted to go up at the end of work on Friday and everybody wanted to come home after dinner on Sunday. So you try to juggle your time accordingly. But a very nice spot and very, very peaceful. Winter, they do get a fair amount of snow up there. This was actually shot in December of '73, and it looks like the drought was well in effect then, because you don't see much in the way of snow in any of these shots. We're going to see some snow coming up, but it's artificial snow when we get to Santa's Village, which is here. It's a theme park, kiddie park up in the mountains. And Carol, when we do the chat session, can talk probably more about it, having gone there, I think, as a kid. It closed for a number of years. They were talking about building a condo complex and everything else, but it's been reopened about 2-3 years ago, just in time for COVID. So I'm not sure what the current status is, how much of it's been rebuilt or redone, but the community was very glad to hear that it was coming back. And here's our artificial snow. We're going to go on the bobsled ride, which is a roller coaster, but theming, right? We took Margot, our daughter, out there when she was young, and I have a number of pictures of her and I out on the various rides, and including bobsled and some of the others. So it was a great spot to go and take families. It was very sad when it closed for those number of years. And next time we're up in Lake Arrowhead, I would like to get back and see what it looks like these days. And imagination's a wonderful thing, right? And I think that will end it for right now with movies. I still had some others I'm working on, but I think we'll just stop here for the day. Let me see what people had in chat. Who does anybody know the name of the killer whales from Marineland? Somebody put them in chat. Nope, nobody had it. Okay, they were Corky and Orky. They were two. They were orcas, killer whales. So Corky and Orky were the prime attractions of Marineland. And like I said, they got picked up and taken off in the middle of the night and brought to various sea worlds. I think one of them ended up in San Diego and the other ended up in Ohio. But you know, poor whales. You're working together, and all of a sudden, bam! You put in the truck, flown someplace, and Corky never saw Orky again. No, Shamu and Namu, that's SeaWorld. So Corky and Orky were the ones from there. Am I muted? No, I'm not, Brent. You should be able to hear me. Hopefully others hear me. So any comments, observations? Carol, did you want to talk about the time up at Lake Arrowhead?
I wish I had more memories than I do. I do remember that they had at Santa's Village had the North Pole, which was an ice pole that you could touch, but I don't remember too much about it. But we lived close enough to Santa's Village that my father and I would go walking that far on a Saturday or Sunday morning, rest a little, and then walk back. I don't know how many miles it was, but it was kind of a cool walk. I love that area. I love the mountains with the pine trees and all that, but it's very built up now compared to what it was when my parents bought the house.
You had the little ice cream shop as you got back near your
the malt shop.
Malt shop, right?
Hey, Bill, it's Mike.
Yeah, hi, Mike.
I actually took my kids there before they closed it, like a couple of years before, and it was a lot of fun. But at that point, the thing was really aging badly. And I remember taking them on the merry-go-round, and I could see through the boards to the ground below, which made me a little nervous. And then they had a wonderful ride that looked like a giant Christmas tree, and you sat in the balls, you know, the ornaments that surrounded the Christmas tree, and then it spun real fast. And the fun thing about that is the little kids, because of centrifugal force, would all end up cramped together after it was spinning around for a while, and that was always good for a laugh. And they had an antique car ride there too that was pretty cool. You know, for a vehicle up in the mountains, it looked really like Disney had made them. And they had an aerial ride that looked, I think, like a giant bee that went on a monorail.
Yep, I've got pictures of Margot and I on that. And they also had a small train ride. Do you have any videos you took of it up there, Mike?
Oh yes. I've got that ornament ride where the kids get crushed. So I'll share it with you.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, it was a super spot. You know, it's amazing, like you say, these things start running down, and you start at times saying, "Oh, I wonder if this is safe." And well, nobody's gotten killed on it yet, so but you don't want to be the first.
Yeah.
So
I had a comment about the Seattle film too.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of these dads with home movie cameras do a lousy job. They're always panning around and everything. I thought that guy did a pretty good job. And I noticed that when they were up at the top of the needle, that the color was orange, right? Original color.
Yeah. Yeah. When they first did it, it stayed that way until 1968, and then they redid it with a basically a more gold color. And I think it was in 2008 they went back and redid it for an anniversary of the thing. But they definitely changed the colors of it. The colors were something that got Prince Charles in big trouble because he came over to visit the World's Fair, and he made a comment about the garish needle and the colors. And of course, you know, Seattle was very proud of their needle and not too happy with Charles. So I don't think he ever got invited back. But yeah, it's definitely changed colors from the time you and Carol and I went up there.
Yeah, I think if you go there now, they have a camera set up with a telephoto lens in another building, and you can arrange in advance to have your picture taken up there from like a mile away. And it's a really dynamic shot because you can see the whole needle, and then you and your family are there.
Yeah, that's really neat. You know, it's interesting. There's a fellow that's on the Facebook group that works at the Space Needle and has offered me, hey, how would you like to come up and stand on the roof and get your picture taken? And I have a certain fear of heights, which is not good for being a pilot, but I keep thinking, well, could that be the sort of thing to pass up? So the next time we go to Seattle, I may take the guy up on it, and I just want to see how strong the safety cables are that they put you up there with.
What's the name of that hotel, the Stratosphere in Vegas, where you can go up to the top and ride a ride?
Yeah, they have a roller coaster up at the top of the Stratosphere.
Uh-huh. And finally, I'll get off here because I'm talking too much. At Universal, that jet you showed, I wonder if that could have been from This Island Earth. I wonder if they used it there. Remember when the hero was flying across the country and he landed in the jet, and then they had some close-ups there, obviously shot, probably at an airport. I don't know, but it seemed like it was the same model.
It probably was. They Universal acquired it in 1958. And so anything that they were doing with a shot back then, they probably did use it. And it's like I said, the serial number is wrong on it. It has a O dash whatever number. It was actually built in 51 and tracked it down. So like I said, it was built in 51. Universal got it in 58. So a very short life for the the military life of it. But they still have it somewhere in a warehouse, according to the FAA records I was checking last night. Any other thoughts people had? Other people, for the people on the East Coast, are probably going, "What on earth is Marineland or Calico or some of the others?" But when Carol and I were at Disney, we had a recreation club, and we went out to Calico Ghost Town with the Studio Recreation Club. I think that was the first time I had seen it. Did you take a trip out there, Debbie, at all?
It rings a bell, but I didn't do it with the MMAC or MMRC. Where is it? I know you said it was in the middle of nowhere, but where?
Out towards San Bernardino, if I remember.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, you can, if you detour on the way back from Vegas, you can get there. Any other Southern California people? Glenn, anybody exactly know where it is off the top of your head?
Nah, I think you're right. It's out towards San Bernardino or maybe past it.
Right.
And I did go as a kid. I don't remember too much about it. I think Walter Knott moved most of it to Buena Park, didn't he?
Basically, what's up there is his leftovers. When he was building Knott's Berry Farm and put everything together, he had the others and he put up there in Calico. So, and it's kind of neat. They have a little mine train ride that rides around. Doesn't have the same sort of stuff that Knott's Berry Farm has, but it's a real antique stuff up there, and it's got a kick. The one hint I'll give people is don't go up there in summer. It's you can imagine a little warm, but yeah, I'm really amazed, Debbie. You remember the initials, the MMRC.
I even remember the little emblem. What was it? Mickey Mouse Recreation Club, and then it became Mickey Mouse Activity Center.
Yeah, absolutely. It was really funny. For the folks that don't know it, it was a club we had at the studio, and that we would sponsor all sorts of trips. So it was really neat because being out here new in California, I didn't know where anything was, and they would say, we're going off to the wineries, and they'd put you on a bus and go off to the wineries, or we're going to go whale watching, sort of thing. And one night they decided that they were going to, I joined the MMRC board to organize a bunch of these things. And they decided they'd reward us with a dinner at Club 33, which was really nice. And we were taking good advantage of the fact that they serve alcohol at Club 33. And it was one of those things where, thank goodness, nobody recognized that we were Disney employees the rest of that night. That would have been a short part of the career, but it was a very entertaining night. And thank goodness we had a bus taking us back to Burbank, because driving would have been a challenge. Okay, Calico is just past Barstow on the way to Las Vegas. Yep, okay, it's out that particular way. But if you do get a chance to go out, yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, Bill. I don't want to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Joey.
Whoever asked about the jet from This Island Earth, I have the information for that. It was a Lockheed T-33A, and I have the serial number as well.
What was it?
It was 529546 7681.
Now, was that
Different
was that the actual jet that flew, or was it just like a mock-up that they used?
Yeah, I'm thinking it's the jet that flew. They did shots. They did separate shots of that, and the jet that lands looks a little bit different. So it could be the one that's at the prop park could be the one.
It's the right model. It's a T-33A, but it's a different serial number. But they may have just gotten, footage from the Air Force of one in flight, and then popped somebody sitting in the cockpit for the close-up stuff.
Yeah, that's what I think they did, because it looks a lot different when it's flying and covered in a green light.
That's because he lost control, and the Metaluna aliens had to take over and land it for him.
So anyway, I thought that would be helpful.
One of the things I always get a kick out of is when you're watching some TV show and go to a shot like Airwolf, the TV series was always wonderful for the fact they'd show a MiG plane flying across. Airwolf would come to chase it down. They'd fire the missile. Then you'd see, a T-38 explode. They just use footage from other things, but there's all sorts of things that they talk about in movies, how so and such plane takes off and a different one lands, and
Well, Universal is, I guess all studios do this, but I was watching an Adam 12 the other day, and Martin Milner lost control of his 71 Dodge and goes off the road, and then a 68 Plymouth crashes into the trees. I said, holy cow, how could anybody not see that? But, back in the day, if you're seeing it for the first time, they might get away with it.
Well, ITV, British television, is famous that they did a scene where they took a expensive car, I think it was a white Jaguar, and dropped it over a cliff, and they put cameras inside so you could see it going down, and then shots of the other thing. So for years, all sorts of ITV shows would be driving along, and the guy'd be driving along in a blue Renault, and he'd come to the cliff, and all of a sudden the white Jaguar would go down and explode. So there's all sorts of people that track the use of that white Jaguar shot going over and over and over. It changes models, years, color, it doesn't matter.
It's like the Wilhelm scream that always shows up in horror movies.
Yeah, exactly.
And in addition, it's called the plane's called a shooting star.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just thought I'd add that in because I just saw that.
Yeah, you still see them on the air show circuit from time to time, and they're kind of neat planes. Expensive, as you can imagine, to run with the the fuel burn on them. But the T-33A was kind of a disaster, and they fixed it in the later models. I don't know if there's any A's still flying. Probably not, because if you look at the FAA record, scrapped, crashed, killed pilot, crashed, So you can imagine, you're a student, they say, hey, how would you like to go out and have a ride in the Widowmaker? So. Other thoughts, anybody recognize any shots or anything that was familiar? Like I said, working at Universal I get a kick out of looking at the shots of the back lot. And we would wander out there and, like I said, feed the fish. It was a real relaxing thing. And all the trams, of course, all the tourists were going by, but you could.
But all those fish starved when you guys left the company.
Yeah, I'd like to think somebody else was keeping alive, because they were there when I got there. So somebody must have fed them before me. But I mean, it was just like, Carol and I used to like to take the kids out to the fish hatchery out in Fillmore, and when you come walking up and throw the water in, and there's food in, the water boils as all the fish are going crazy. Right at Universal, they would just climb over each other's back and just about come up out of the water and grab their fries. They were hungry fish.
Yeah, maybe that's how the cast of McHale's Navy met their end. They fell in the water,
Yeah, excuse me. I'm glad you mentioned it. That for folks that don't know it, that's where McHale's Navy was all filmed. They had the fake PT boat. They actually had two fake PT boats that they would take in and out of the dock there. And then it was done as was it Taratupa? Was that the name of the island, Mike?
They started off and moved to Italy. They relocated the show to Italy, remember?
But I think when it started, I think the island McHale was on was called Taratupa, and that was all filmed there. And then they moved to Italy, it was filmed there too. but now they use the other side of it. So on one side, you had a jungle sort of setting where they, had all the huts and everything. And when they moved to Italy, they just took the town that we saw, the buildings in the background of the submarine going across, and they just painted, pizzeria or something on it and said you're instantly in Italy. So
Yeah, that made the show a lot funnier, I'm sure. There is a famous kind of Hollywood story back on that Riverboat show with Darren McGavin and Burt Reynolds, that they didn't get along because, Burt it was one of his first jobs and he was kind of egotistical and everything. Darren was more like the old pro. And they finally came to loggerheads one day, and Darren McGavin tossed Burt into the lake. And that's when everybody found out the lake was only like 3 or 4 feet deep, because Burt was able to just stand up.
he's lucky he didn't break his neck going in.
Really, really.
I walked up on that boat one time with the name Enterprise. I wanted to be able to say I stood on the bridge of the Enterprise. Well, you talk about looking down and seeing the floor, Mike, that thing was in bad shape. And then they finally decided to tear it down. I talked to one of the guys and said, we didn't tear it down so much as we pushed it down and just gave it a shove and it came down on its own. So it was in bad shape, but it was used in all sorts of movies for many, many years. Stood out there and, our Southern California sun just baked it to pieces. So, Disneyland, I had to realize, I don't know where I put it. It was supposed to throw the flying saucers in there. I'll have to find that. I wonder where that went. Let's see if I can find it real quick. Disneyland. Where did the flying saucers go? Let's see. See if it's in this one. I think the flying saucers were gone by this time. I'm just looking here in my background on another screen. Okay, yeah, I found the flying saucers. So everybody want to see the flying saucers? Debbie wants to see the flying saucers. Okay, let me take this back to the beginning here. And I will share a screen. Okay. And we will play the flying saucers. So this is somewhere shot between 1960 earth did I put the flying saucers? Let me stop sharing 1 second. I'm gonna go find the flying
You know,
saucers.
Bill, while you're doing that,
Yeah.
I just wanted to mention, I was struck by seeing Mickey Mouse in the parade. And before I retired 8 years ago, I remember going to a corporate meeting with brand management. And they talked about the aging of Mickey Mouse. And they talked about how, you know, when Walt had Mickey, he was a young, full of energy and hope and everything else. But as the Disney Corporation aged, they also aged Mickey. So in your parade shots, Mickey is still on the ground. He's at the front. He's talking to the kids. But if you look at later videos, Mickey gets older. He gets a tummy. There's actually Mickey Mouse with a belly. And they start to put a little bit of graying at his temples. And on the parade floats, they put him up above. And in later parades, they have him at the end of the parade. And he's like waving goodbye to the kids and everything else, but he's corporate Mickey. And they realized they kind of blew it with Mickey. He was no longer understood by young kids and the youth. And we also lost all the Mickey Mouse cartoons. So what we grew up with, we all knew who Mickey Mouse was. The younger generation knows Mickey Mouse as a plush toy. And the fat, older mouse at the end of a parade. So now you see Mickey in khaki gear, or you see him in Jungle Cruise gear, and they put him back down on the ground again, and they slim down his tummy.
Yeah, I remember when John Hench did his picture, I think for the 50th anniversary, they gave him gray in the temples and all that. And you know, as you said, you know, all of a sudden Mickey was just a plush toy. People hadn't seen a Mickey Mouse cartoon in how many years, you know?
Yeah.
So have you seen the new Mickey cartoons for the last couple of years?
I tried. Has anyone else tried? I lasted 3 or 4 minutes.
I know. I just, you know, I guess it was really funny. Too bad, because I saw one that I really liked. The story was really funny, but the artwork is just so, you know, I don't know what the right description for it. Angular. It reminded me of the Tom Oreb artwork from the commercials they did in the 50s and stuff. Very abstract stuff, and
Yeah.
it's just very hard to for me to get excited about it.
Yeah, I think they're trying for a retro look or something. They use it in Runaway Railroad too, and
Yeah.
it's just not. I didn't grow up with it, so to me it's just not right. But who knows? You know what current folks think about it. Looks like it might be easier to draw too. So.
Yeah, it's you know, they don't ask me how to do it, but you know, the first time I saw one of those cartoons, I was like horrified.
Hey,
I don't
Bill,
know.
I'm just gonna mute you there. You're making a little bit of background noise.
I don't know what date you had on that original Disneyland or the Disneyland video you just saw us, but it showed Haunted Mansion open, so that's got to be 69 or later.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out where I put the flying saucer one. I had it because when I was chatting, I was looking at it. Well, I will promise flying saucers for another time. I won't tie people up as I keep looking through here, but yeah, the flying saucers, I never got to be on them. Carol did. How many other people rode the flying saucers? Dan did. Okay, Don. Yeah, I mean, it's got great video. They're bouncing up and down and, you know, banging into each other. I will find it for a future time. I have to sort my. I'm trying to do shot lists of what's on what reel and keep track of it. And it's more fun to scan it and watch it than it is to catalog it. So. Oh, Glenn had his thumb up. He's you know,
I was just going to say, yeah, I rode those, and it was not what I think of as my favorite. You know, you just bounced around a little bit. It was hard to maneuver them.
Yeah, you know, Glenn, normally I see you in the background, I mean, the video, and you're moving around. The last week or two, I'm just looking at you, and it's like, my goodness, he keeps very still.
Well, I'm sitting in the dark.
Oh, okay, Baron, you had your hand up?
yeah, I was going to say that I'll disagree. I think the later versions, unless there's been something in the last 2-3 years that I'm not familiar with, but I think they came out within the last 10 years.
Oh no, it's the last
the
2 or
animations
3.
of Mickey Mouse.
There's an echo.
Yeah, I think I know where it's coming from. Thanks. Yeah, the last 2-3 years they've been doing it for Disney Plus and that sort of stuff, and the design is way wacky and different. So 10
Okay.
years ago was one thing. The last 3-4 years, I haven't liked whatever they've been doing.
Yeah, I guess I have to go look because I know that the reiteration of the animation for Mickey Mouse, they did like a series of 10 or 15 of them, I think. And I think the first one was like first one that they did was Mickey in Paris. Minnie wanted him to go get some
Yeah,
bread or some pastries. Is that, and then if you're familiar with it, then is that then the animation that you're speaking of? Because I think that animation is superb. Actually, I think it's fresh. I think it's innovative, and I think it's very clean. Obviously, it's computer generated, but I thought it put a very fresh, very keen spin on Mickey Mouse, and could see it where it could be, bringing in a new, younger audience into it. That's just what I feel.
yeah. It's Mickey Mouse and Croissant de Triomphe. They love puns in the name of the things. I'm just looking at it here, but unfortunately
Yeah.
for me, I'm still a traditionalist. I like the old Mickey, but as long as people like Mickey, that's fine.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, hey Dan, you got your hand up?
Yeah, I have two comments on the flying saucers. One is, yeah, they bounced around, but I was one of those troublemakers that would go off in the corner and then lean and get a running start and ram into someone. It was a lot more fun that way. And then secondly, you learn to go before the afternoon, because at least in the summertime, before they put the covering over it, you'd get the vortex and all, the thing would collapse and they'd have to go sort of reset it all. So if you wanted to be sure and have it operating, you needed to go earlier in the day.
Yeah, it was before my time, and then Luigi's Tire, they proved that it still doesn't work. So maybe in Mark III, they'll come up with something new. I keep thinking they could do something except for battery power being a thing. Remember the motors we used for the People Mover, the maglev? If you could do those flying saucers with some sort of maglev system, it could be kind of neat.
The other problem with the tire version in the cars area was it was for two people, and you had to have both people be pretty much the same weight, or you'd permanently be steering in one direction.
Yeah, exactly. Tom, you had your hand up?
I was going to say a friend of mine, his name was Don Brown. He ran the ride, the flying saucer ride. And he said every morning they'd gather, before they turned it on, and they'd have a bet on how many rats would pop out of the holes. And anywhere from 1 to 5 rats, they'd turn on. And
Yeah, I've heard that they like to go in there at night for the warmth or something, and like you said, they turn it on and blow them out of there. Bob
Yeah,
Gerd talks about that.
And then this week I'm going to be hanging out with Jake Garn, he's former astronaut. And I just thought if anybody had any questions they'd want me to ask him. He's lives about a block away and asked me to come over and spend some time with him. So.
Oh, sorry, what was the name?
Jake Garn. He was an astronaut.
Okay. Carolyn's shaking her head. She probably knows who he is.
He was also a state senator for Utah.
Oh, okay, great.
He's in my mind, he's the one that destroyed our banking system.
That's quite a endorsement.
I know. No, but yeah, he was in charge of the banking committee back. Remember when interest rates went so high, and he had
Great.
had some unusual ideas.
Wayne, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention one of the small things that really impressed me on my first visit to Disneyland that was shown in that last film, and that's the balloon vendor. When I first went to Disneyland with my camera, I noticed that the balloon vendor always kept a full bunch of balloons. He would sell one or two and they'd be replaced. So it was a perfect Kodak moment. And it just impressed me. Boy, if Disney can pay that much attention to that little detail, I know this place is going to be great.
Yeah, the balloons were done by a licensee. They had a shop back behind Main Street where they did all their balloon blowing up. And that was one of the things they did was they had a, excuse me, number of vendors out in the park. But then they had a guy that would basically grab the balloons and go out and restock them all the way. And they said that they found people wanted to get the balloons and they were all big and colorful. And they got down to just a small number, excuse me, they didn't sell as well. So they would have a runner who would just go out and pick up the money and also drop off more balloons out there. So it was a real nice operation they had going in the back there. Glenn?
Yeah, do you remember during the Christmas parade, they would release hundreds of balloons up into the air, and I guess they stopped doing that.
Yeah, I mean, were you there for the 25th anniversary when they released like 25,000 blue and silver balloons?
No, I didn't see that.
Oh, I was there for that. I've got quite a few pictures of that. We had, gone down to Main Street way before it was supposed to start, and they had them all up on the roofs of the train station, all up and down the roofs of Main Street, buildings, the Opera House, everything. And then they let them go, and it was just this huge thing of balloons. And matter of fact, I can find a picture of it real quick. They started then getting complaints, of course, about birds eating balloons and that sort of stuff. So they had to stop doing that after a period of time. Let me just see if I can find it real quick.
They also used to release pigeons, white pigeons that would go at the end of the flag ceremony.
Right. Yeah. Let's see. Okay. Yeah, I found some pictures here. I have to rescan these. I scanned these originally back in 2005 and found ways to do better color since then. So let me share screen. So again, they had daytime fireworks going off, and they had the balloons all up in the roofs of the buildings. And then they just set them off. You can see this guy has the job here of running down and untying them. So one by one, he's running down and letting the balloons go. But that was the 25th anniversary. It's funny. There's another one I have where they're all blue and silver balloons. But this is the sort of balloon releases they used to do on a big day. You can imagine how long it took them to blow those things up in advance. So just a few balloons. Well, again, sorry, Carolyn, you've had your hand up. I don't see your hand up. I'm sorry. So go ahead. We're not ignoring you.
A couple of things. Debbie was mentioning about the aging of Mickey and where he shows up in the parades and things. And so 4 years ago, Ken Carpenter and his wife and Mark and I went out to Disney World, and at the end of, spent the whole week and went to all the parks, but at the end of the parade, that's when Mickey showed up on this giant platform with Minnie. And it's almost like they're a couple of prom queens, waving and going along. And then about a year later, I was in Hong Kong and Mickey never showed up in the parade. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And then the third thing is Tom mentioned about Jake Garn. You probably don't want to bring this up to Jake, but he became a little famous in the astronaut corps for getting really sick the first time he flew. And he got the nickname Barfin Jake Garn. Just, you probably don't want to ask him about that though.
Yeah, it's probably not the sort of thing he would like to hear a lot about.
Well, he wasn't the only astronaut, but he was just the one that got ragged for it.
Oh, well, I guess even if you're ragged for it, still being an astronaut is pretty damn cool. I'm just trying to see if I can find those flying saucers. Oh, God. It's really
Debbie,
weird.
so 4 years ago, that would have been about the time had they already made the decision to put Mickey back on the ground at that point?
I retired 8 years ago, and I probably
Oh,
went to
okay.
that meeting, I don't know, 3 or 4 years before I retired.
Mhm.
So, I mean, it was a big thing that they realized that they had taken the corporate symbol and turned it into a fat aging icon at the end of a parade up on a platform when he's supposed to
Yeah,
be the
yeah.
father of the company. And, but there were people who said, but the company is going to be, 75 years old or 80 years old. Does Mickey need to reflect it? And they said, he's an animated character. He doesn't have to reflect anything. It's whatever we want. So
Well, I was interested to see that he didn't hardly show up at all in Hong Kong. Goofy, yeah. I mean, they loved him, but he just wasn't really in the. I didn't remember seeing him in the afternoon parade at all.
I wonder if the Chinese kids even know who Mickey Mouse is, because the American kids are kind of like, who is Mickey Mouse, right?
Well, and there were the plushies, and he showed up on hats, but beyond that, I don't remember seeing him as a character appearance or in the parade. So I don't know, but yeah, Goofy, he was all over the place.
Back in the 70s, when I started at Disney, they realized Mickey hadn't been seen by anybody since the Mickey Mouse Club went off the air. So they started taking some of the old Mickey Mouse cartoons and attaching them to the theatrical releases that were going out. And they made a special thing about now and glorious, spectacular black and white. And they put out a couple of the old Mickey cartoons that way, like this, the opening act of Fantasia and some of the other odds and ends. And that was where all of a sudden, my goodness, as people started buying their retro Mickey stuff, the pie eyes, pie cut eyes, and all the rest of it. So it became a huge merchandising opportunity. The next thing you know, licensees were just lining up out the door to put Mickey on T-shirts, school memo pads, also lunch boxes, all sorts of things, because they were able to successfully, bring them back to life. So. But yeah, they didn't know what they had or what to do with some of these things. So the studio management in the 70s was an interesting time to be there. to be polite. I mean, there were some of the old guard were really great, and others were just, that's not the way Walt would do it. Walt's been dead for 20 years. I mean, let's move on. Let's go. It was a different time to work there. Well, thanks everybody for joining. I hope you saw. I will come up with the what you call it, the flying saucers. So when I find it, Debbie, I'll mail you a link to it. So, but they looked like great fun. Again, I wish I had sound film, because I understand they were quite loud with all the air and the flapper valves and all the rest of it. But I've only seen them in pictures, and I guess well, I knew the Luigi ride was you could hear that. But appreciate it. Hope folks that are dealing with the bomb cyclone and everything back east deal with it. And if you're getting snow, wind, or rain, we had a lot of wind out here the last couple of days, and more coming tomorrow. So our big worry when we get wind is fire. So keep the fingers crossed on that. So I had to respond to a down power line yesterday, and it was luckily it fell in the middle of the street and not in a wooded area, so nothing burned. Well, we'll see you next week. Oh, before I go, anybody have suggestions on topics that they would like to see that might have covered before, but do a deeper dive in? I'm looking for suggestions on themes. So if anybody has one now, you can throw it in chat, or you can drop me an email. I don't want to keep boring you with more movies every week, but that's what my big avocation has been lately, is restoring movies. And I've got a whole bunch more that I've got to, partially in the restore stage. But, as Mike Clark mentioned, a lot of the people shoot, the camera's going up, down, back and forth. And I'm trying to, take out some of the really, really, really bad stuff. So, well, thanks all for joining. Hope everybody has a great Saturday, and see you all coming up. As they say, we'll see you at the movies. Bye.
Thanks, Bill.
Thanks, Phil.